Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of City on a Hill. Another great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. It's interesting because it almost plays into the whole Siobhan and DeCourcy conversation earlier in the episode where he's like, oh, it's going to be a good day for both of them. And it kind of was, but there was DeCourcy's day didn't 100% end well when we get to the end of the episode. But some interesting things about this episode. First and foremost, picking up with the Jenny and Father Doyle thing and then them doing their thing. You're like, wow, look at you guys. And, him doing all the right things, bringing her breakfast in bed. And for her, it's like, Jackie never brought me breakfast in bed. He's like, yeah, Father Doyle's like, forget about him, at least for now. And I even love when Jenny picks him up from the hospital. He's like, oh, I'm surprised you were actually going to come back. She's like, well, yeah, me too. And she's so dismissive of him. He's like, yeah, get your clothes on, let's go. It's this nice parallel to last episode when she was so distraught and heartbroken. But it's like, yeah, you're going to survive. You're okay. I can be pissed at you now, Everything went out the window when I thought that, oh my God, you got shot, you could die. Now it's kind of like, oh, I realize, I'm reminded time and time again how much of a crappy person you are, Jackie. You are a terrible, terrible husband. So now it is a situation of, I'm in a situation where I'm happy now. So she talks to Father Doyle and kind of learns a little bit more about his circumstances, she knows a little bit about him, kind of almost like surface level stuff, kind of like how he makes her feel. I mean, that's not really surface level, but it's like she doesn't really know that much about him, but it's just, she kind of got swept up in this whirlwind romance because it's like, yeah, here's someone coming to sweep you off your feet and kind of saving you from the bastard that is Jackie Rohr. So she goes with him to try and, find her brother, but her half-brother she doesn't really know about, and she goes and meets with the private detective. He's willing, like, hey, you got to determine whether or not I had the face of someone who's going to dig deep, dig up in all the dung and all the shit just to find you what you need, because I'm the type of person that's going to dig super deep. Which, since we're on that subject, we'll talk about it. Jenny found out that her brother has been locked up in facilities a good chunk of his life, in and out of facilities, mental facilities, because he's kind of suffering from bipolar disorder. So, and it turns out it's like, oh, was my father the one that committed him? It's like, no, his mom, because they obviously have two different moms, and then it's like, yeah, she just kind of walked away. And I guess it's like Jenny probably found some commonality in that because obviously she doesn't have the best relationship with her mom, and that's a whole toxic thing. She also doesn't have a great relationship with their dad, and I'm curious, does he either? Because they didn't really go into it because the private investigator is like, oh, he's still going to keep digging on certain fronts because he can't, because the hospital or whatever, that the facility he's currently in won't give the investigator any information. But for Jenny to find out, it went from 0 to 60 on knowing so much of, well, it's interesting using that number to consider her brother at 60, but he's saying, at this point in time, he is stable, so if she wanted to know more about him, she could go and visit him, considering he's in a good state of mind. But then you also kind of just because it immediately made me think of this, because I haven't thought about it in a while, but I didn't think about it when the information got found out last episode, but now I'm thinking about oh, what if it ends up being kind of like Lois and her half-brother situation, No, that wasn't even a half-brother. That was a full brother that she had no idea existed type of situation. If you don't remember, her brother ended up being a serial killer, so that ended up being a whole thing. Either way, the fact is, her mom was like, oh yeah, you don't want to be around this guy. It's I'm curious what are some of the things he's done. He might, there might be some, issues mentally, but it probably, that might be in conjunction with some other stuff that he's done. The fact is, for his mom to walk away from him and want nothing to do with him, there might be something there. I feel like the private investigator would have probably found some of that, but it's probably just once again, I feel like his investigation would have popped up something if he had done something really terrible. So maybe it's just him, the highs and the lows. Maybe that just kind of maybe he just had episodes that just kind of freaked people out, and it's just trying to get him the best help possible. Maybe it's not that he did anything to anyone explicitly or something, maybe it's just they're just, maybe he's had kind of manic episodes or something, and that's all it is. But I'm curious to see what happens with Jenny, especially with everything going on in her life, which we'll get to in a second, but I'm curious about that. And like I said, like, does their father visit him at all? Because didn't her mom say last episode or something like he kind of doesn't either? Maybe I'm misremembering. Either way. So all the while that's happening, circling back to the whole Ginny and Jackie and Father Doyle thing, I love the whole situation where Jackie goes to Milani to be like, yo, I need you to help me investigate stuff. He's like, you kind of owe me. He's like, I owe you. He's like, oh, or maybe I owe you. Let's not get too caught up in it. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to go in there and talk to this vet who kind of basically serves as a doctor for like the the mafia. And he's like, oh, I'm going to go in. And it's like, no, I'm going to go in. Jackie's like, Milani's like, well, what am I supposed to be here? It's like, oh, you're just supposed to be my cheering squad, essentially. It's like, but gets the information about it being some other guy, the guy who actually pulled the trigger, the one that Jackie shot, which I love that Jackie like bust that guy, and the guy's like, oh, Jackie deserves it considering all he's done to my family. And I love that Jackie's like, you want to act tough, but you're just a punk. Your dad's the one with actual balls, but you aren't. Like, you want to talk like all this and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, like the Italians have like run things in this city for like 100 years, but you ain't a part of that equation. You're just like some run-of-the-mill punk. Your dad's the last one in the family with some actual cojones. And Jackie went super hard in the paint. He's like, your first day on Warpole, you are going to be fucked in the ass 5 times and your dad's going to watch. I was like, Jesus, Jackie. And it's like, all right, the person behind it was like some preacher, and priest. I was like, no way. I was like, no fucking way. And even Jackie like was leaning in, almost be like, oh, that fucker. I was like, no way. And the rest of them, I was like, Father fucking Doyle? I mean, to be fair, Jackie pushed him. Jackie kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. I mean, to be fair, this is also true to Jackie. Karma always bitch slaps Jackie, regardless. I mean, it's happened season 1, happened season 2, happened season... I mean, now it's happening in this season, but... I mean, the best comparison, and the sad thing is, like, it's very reminiscent of when he pushed Clay Roach. And what did Clay Roach do? He did what he did to Benedetta. Like, it doesn't make him, like, I'm not saying he's justified or anything like that. No, he was a garbage human being, terrible person. Jackie killing him, yeah, bastard deserved it. But what I am saying is, like, he created that situation. I mean, like, Jackie creates enemies everywhere. The fact of the matter is, like, Father Doyle just had to hire someone to do it. Someone who already hated your guts because you put the rest of their family in jail. So it's like, they're like, that guy was like, fuck you. And Father Doyle's like, fuck you. And it's like, yeah, because you threatened him. And it's like, yeah, he retaliated. I mean, he's a decent enough human being that he retaliated against you. Even telling Jenny later, I was like, oh, I wasn't trying to kill him. I just wanted to hurt him like he hurt me. But Jenny didn't want to believe it. It's like, oh, you're like, set this all up. It's like, nope. Father Doyle tried to gun for me. You want to know the truth? Tell him yourself and ask him yourself. Because Jackie's also like, yeah, that money he said that he sent to that father. It's like, yeah, he was actually sending it to arm the IRA, which Jenny does confront him. It's like, okay, so did you put a hit on my husband? It's like, yeah, I didn't want to kill him. But it's like, yeah, he broke my thumb last year and he tried to run me over with the car. So I wanted to hurt him like he hurt me. And it's like, okay, yeah, I'm a part of the IRA. And the way he spoke about that, because I'm like, that is the thing of like, you're a fucking priest. To be fair, he's not a priest right now, but some of that fuck shit, you know, I shouldn't say fuck shit. The stuff he was involved in with the IRA. Fuck shit is just me in general saying like some of the, you know, some of the stuff he's up to. You know, that was what fuck shit's supposed to be, right? I don't know why that's kind of like my, kind of like that phrasing. I just like, oh, like, you own some fuck shit. I don't know why I like that phrasing. I just recorded something else that I used that for. I'm trying to remember. I think it was a cleaning lady. I'm trying to remember what it was. Anyway, putting that aside, he's not really a priest right now, but like my point was he was also doing some of that, sending money to the IRA so they can buy guns. Like, you know, I mean, obviously, like a lot of that played into some of the last season storylines, especially with Jenny. All right, because that was the whole point, too. Like, because, like, the person she got close to, like, the whole thing with Jackie was like, yeah, you're going to pretend like you had no connection to that lady that you invited into our house. You're trying to be friends with. It's like, yeah, that, you know, so it's, like, kind of interesting for that all to still kind of come back around. I mean, to be fair, it's, like, Father Doyle was always in the middle of that. But the whole point I was trying to make, though, was like the interesting perspective he had on it, where it's like, right, you can't always be kind of like this moral compass. Sometimes you just have to do stuff for the greater good type of thing. He was kind of basically, it's like the ends justify the means type of conversation he was having with Jenny. But it's like, right, I might not be the best person, but like your husband, God, it's like your happiness should come first. You should leave him. And it's like, and she's like, what? He's like, go to Belfast. And she's like, what, with you? He's like, yeah. I'm like, you are forgetting the whole aspect of she does have a daughter too, but it's like, well, our daughter's in college. I'm like, you're asking her to run away with you, which is like, oh, it's sweet and everything. But I'm like, because he's about to get, all this is going to lead to him getting deported. So, and that's probably not going to be, if he gets deported, he's not coming back. I mean, on multiple fronts. One, something terrible is probably going to happen to him when he goes back, but also what's also strongly likely is just he's not going to be able to legally get back into this country after that. I actually don't know all the red tape you'd have to go through. Like, is it like once you get in trouble like that and get deported, like, is it like a perma ban, or could you ever like give back to society to some extent to work like a sentence off of like your ban from a country or something? I've never heard anything ever cover that, and obviously I've never been banned from a country because I've never left the U.S. But still, I don't know. It's probably like a pretty like, oh, like duh, idiot. But it's still like I've never really thought about it too much when you're like, oh, someone got deported back to like their country, and I'm like, I've never really thought about like what that means in a grand scheme, like really means. Tangents on that side. But I think Jenny is legitimately thinking about it, but it's like, she has too much here because she's like, I don't stay with Jackie out of convenience. It's like, I wanted to give my daughter a home, like with two parents, like no, putting our bullshit aside long enough to kind of raise our daughter. That's all. Like, so it's like, it's not like out of convenience. It's like, I tolerate Jackie and all his bullshit, just for the sake of our daughter. And it's like, and he's probably going to make her, like, Jackie kind of takes it for granted, which is sad because he was on some, like, not retroactive, some very existential stuff last episode. He had to talk with Benedetta, but he didn't have it with Jenny. But, I don't know. I think Jenny is going to leave him at the end of the season. Like, I don't think she's sticking around. I think she's kind of done with Jackie. We'll see. It might just be kind of like, oh, we're miserable together and that's where we're going to stay. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But kind of staying on the Jackie conversation, all the while that's happening, Jackie's working with the Corsi and Kaysen about the whole thing because Irina, who was supposed to be their witness, won't testify, which I love the back and forth, like Jackie and it's like, Jackie's like, yeah, like my form of justice is like, I kind of do whatever, I get my justice and nothing else really matters. But it's like, no, Jackie, the difference between us is when I get justice, innocent people don't get hurt unlike you. It's like, DeCourcy tries to be a scalpel, whereas Jackie's always been a chainsaw. And I love Kaysen, hey, guys, girls, calm down. You're both pretty. So they end up trying to go after the cop that helped, bullied or threatened Irina so that to hush her against Sinclair. Then Jackie ends up confronting the guy that did it, and it's kind of like, right. He ended up saying, and it's once again kind of getting very introspective of, he's like, I know who I am, but do you know who you are, Willie? Because it's about, we both took an oath to the badge. He's like, don't you think it's kind of wild that, we would put away guys guilty of the shit that we do and got away with. So it's like, wanting to kind of be on a better path, Because even that conversation came up with, between DeCourcy and, Jackie about, right, you didn't really push Irina, and it's like, and even DeCourcy was like, yeah, but neither did you, and it's like, yeah, because of the Benny thing, but he's like, yeah, it's not about me, it's kind of about you, this is kind of your territory. He's like, if it was Benny, would you want, he's like, yes, if it meant stopping Dryden from ever doing this to someone else's daughter, then yeah, like, push as hard as you need to, essentially. But I do think that is such an interesting thing that when you think about Jackie's interaction with Arena, he did not, like, Jackie has never been afraid to push. I mean, there was multiple times about this episode when he pushes people when the going gets tough. He's always done that. But because it was someone under those circumstances, it is interesting that, I didn't even think about it at the time, that he did kind of have kid gloves on at that time, because it's like, right, these are people who went through something his daughter did, and he walked on eggshells around with Benny's situation. Granted, there were extenuating circumstances because of the roach angle and that kind of falling on him and his own guilt about it. But I think a lot of that still probably influenced the way he handled things with Arena as well. So, putting all that, aside, but kind of, keeping it in the vein of the conversation, Willie immediately went to Sinclair to try and get paid off to not talk. Jackie recorded the whole thing. Sadly, no audio, but he got a deaf friend. He's like, Reed Lipson's like, wait, you have a deaf friend? He's like, yeah, well, he wasn't deaf when I met him. I'm like, Jesus, Jackie, like, you severely fuck over everyone in your life, bro. No one's safe. Eventually Milani's going to get fucked over too. He's reaping the benefits now, but it's severely going to like screw him over eventually. So they ended up using that to get Willie to turn on Sinclair, and Jackie showed up and it's like, yeah, I put those cameras in the moment you and Letitia were going for your weekend. And he's like, yeah. What was that line that I really loved? That he's like, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but Jackie Roar can't be paid off. So here's the key to the house. Here's the keys to the BMW. Deuces. I was like, yes, Jackie. Once again, time and time again, I've said it. I've used these exact words. Deep down, Jackie isn't a complete and utter piece of shit. He is a piece of shit a lot of times, but not always, so that's always a caveat. So the fact is he did that. Even later on came back to Letitia and she's like, hey, we could try and figure this out. He's kind of like, yeah, like, don't be on your moral high ground. Cause it's like, he's like, yeah, you kind of knew about what your husband was doing when he was drugging women. And I love that she's like, yeah, it's fucking, he's like, an affair is one thing. Drugging and raping young women, I don't know, like, she's trying to be like, oh, don't be so high and mighty, because it's like, yeah, having an affair sucks. You cheating on your significant other sucks. It's not even in the same, it's on, they're both bad things, but to like almost be like, yeah, but don't be on your moral high ground. It's like, even if he's having an affair, even doing all the shitty stuff he's done, he's still on a higher moral high ground than you and your husband. Like, that's the crazy thing. You would never think that, like, considering all that Jackie's done, but it's like, yeah, he may be a piece of shit, but, Sinclair and his wife Letitia are bigger pieces of shit because of all this stuff that she co-signed everything that Sinclair did. She knew what he was doing and was kind of fine with it. That's the sad thing. Like, he destroyed so many young women's lives and just kind of, whatever. Because I think maybe just because of what she was getting out of it, maybe in her own twisted way because of what she's also getting out of it, and there is some twisted form of love. The fact is that they were kind of a match made in heaven makes you think they definitely show signs of, like, it ain't just Sinclair that's fucked up. So is Letitia as well. And so she's saying, like, right, you could divorce your wife and we could get married. He's like, I came here to save you, Letitia, not fucking marry you. And for him, it's like, yo, I thought I came from a fucked up family. I made a fucked up family, but you and Sinclair, you guys take the fucking cake. And she's like, I'm going to stay by my husband's side and then we're going to ruin you. He was like, I've done a pretty good job of that myself, but you want to try? Go ahead. Take your shot. I'm like, yeah. And Letitia does not look happy. Granted, it all doesn't work out because, lo and behold, Dan is sitting down with Sinclair. Oh, lo and behold, I'm super surprised. It's like, we literally a couple episodes ago saw Dan taking, like, getting paid, I'm sure it was a campaign for the campaign fund. And it's like, I mean, Dan's shown himself over the course of the series to always kind of look out for himself. Like, the way, like, he wants DeCourcy to kind of, like, take certain jobs and do certain things. It's like, I want you to kind of fall in line, do what I want you to. I mean, he even set up the whole Sinclair, but the DeCourcy and Blair competition. It's like, Dan's not the greatest guy. So I'm like, oh, am I shocked? It's like, no. Because Sinclair has the power and connections to grease the wheels even more for Dan, so Dan's going to have his back. He's probably had, like, the moment it's like, he's probably one of the people that's probably let, because DeCourcy let Dan know earlier in the episode, like, yo, we got all this, and this. I wonder, is that why Irina actually backed down? Because I wonder, I doubt Willie visited her now, but she probably just got cold feet just because it got closer and closer to becoming a reality of testifying against Sinclair. So that's all fascinating. So that's going to be interesting the next episode, seeing how that plays. I don't know. There's a scene in a trailer related to Sinclair that makes me go like, having not seen the preview, this is just based on like having seen a trailer a while back, and makes me go like, I think Sinclair might actually get away with it. I think he'll go down. It might be a thing of one of his victims will come and kill him at the end of the season, or next episode, or he will he'll go away, like he'll seem like he's getting away with it, but eventually like they'll all end up bringing him down. So that might also be a possible. I could see either side of that going. It's a possibility he could get away, but I don't think he will. I think it's most likely get away for a little bit, but they ultimately take you down, or somebody puts you down, or maybe he ends up killing himself. Letitia kills him and says it was in self-defense. He tried to attack her, so she's able to spin it and be like she's a victim to kind of get more public support on her side. Like, oh my God, my husband's such a monster, I had no idea. Letitia seems like she could definitely spin it that way, which I feel so bad just because Joanne Kelly, it's like, obviously, like, she will always be Micah in my head, so seeing her like play like a deplorable character, I'm like, no, not my Micah, which, God, once again, my head, it's just, once again, it's like, I'm sure actors hate that when it's like, right, when they play so many different roles and you get one character like stuck. If it's like, yeah, but that's like the thing I best know her from. So, other than that situation, we had everything with Chris, who's dealing with his son, who his son's kind of being a little asshole, apparently got drunk, fought someone, and had a fake ID. But to be fair, because of the current family circumstances, he's kind of lashing out because he sees how distraught his mom is. So like, we're not even at home. We're living with our grandparents. And it's just like, he's kind of lashing out at his dad, understandably so. And so your boy, DeCourcy, like, helps out. He's like, yo, your dad, he's a good guy. Granted, yes, he's flawed, just like you are. It's just like, talks about meeting his dad halfway with everything. It's like, understandable. You have every right to kind of be, I understand, like, why you'd be mad. But, DeCourcy kind of takes it into the perspective of, me and my dad, like, we never saw eye to eye, but it's about coming, having two different viewpoints and then, kind of meeting in the middle. Because he's like, right, I came to understand my dad, at the end of his life, and I like to believe that he came to understand and see me too. So it's like, right, you need to meet your dad halfway. So it does seem like it does work out in the end. And also we found out from Chris that he's not, I say still doing it. It's only the second time, but I could see this continuing to be a pattern for him. I mean, he even says, like, the reason why he does it, he gets a lady of the night. I mean, granted, I'm sure this time he's making sure to wear a rubber because don't want a more disease situation going on. Once again, to be fair, that widow put it out there last episode, like, yo, like, do you find me attractive? He's like, yeah, but it's that thing of, last thing you want to do is kind of mix it up with someone you know or that knows you. He's like, it kind of gets into that weird territory because it's like, right, if people found out, that'll be a whole thing, because at least this stays hush-hush, because I think at this point, him and his wife are pretty much, like, separated. Probably just, like, the filings haven't, like, the divorce hasn't gone through, but at this point they're pretty much separated. So I don't see that turning around. Not unless they do. Not unless he tries to win his wife back. And I mean, he's not a cop with the strike force anymore. He is still just the cop, though. He's just an investigator for the DA office, but I could still put him in the middle of things. So maybe that still wouldn't be enough for his wife. And after everything, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Another side of this is everything with Siobhan. Trying to do everything she can for Hernando and his family. She ends up getting DeCourcy's help to go after the OSHA guy who was like faking and covering up stuff for that, was it Needham Industries. So gathering testimony from all these people, witnesses, people who know Hernando, who are kind of involved in all of this. The OSHA guy as well. She's also dealing with being followed by a guy. The fact is he broke the antenna off and put that in her face. I'm like, no, like, you're not realizing how, like, racially fucked up that is? Because I'm immediately thinking of, like, the fact is you're pointing in her face, and maybe that's kind of the point to intimidate her, too, like, on a race level, being like, yo, that's like I'm gonna beat you with this thing, which is essentially like like, you're gonna lash her with that. I'm like, that's why I'm like, there's layers of fucked upness of, like, the fact that you broke that off her car and just, like, kind of pointed at her like that. And obviously, she has every right to kind of be a little paranoid because it's like, right, this guy's following her because the mob doesn't like that she's kind of causing a lot of stir. So she's talking to her therapist about kind of confronting that fear a little bit. Once again, it's still that fear around what happened to her, losing her baby. It's not paranoia when they really are coming after you. I mean, to be fair, she did kind of scream at the guy in the parking lot, like, leave me alone. He's like, I'm just trying to get to my car, lady. But, the guy has followed you twice, so it's not, once again, it's not paranoia if you're right. But in the end, I think she at least taking the steps to finding some equilibrium again, I think, on the basketball court when she was, like, practicing. So, either way, she's, like, armed to the teeth and ready, and during the dealings, it's like, cool, we got signed testimonies and this, we're ready to go if you are. So I was like, all right, what kind of settlements we're looking at? Oh, I'm looking at, what was it, 8 figures? It's like, no, 6, and it's like 7. It's like, all right, fine. It's like, no, 7 figures, and it's like, all right, so kept going through the numbers. It's like, okay, 9, and it's like, she's like, I will say 9 to the end of eternity. So I was like, right. So Hernando's family gets to 9 mil for all of this because it's like, right, taking care of his teenage son, Pepe, while also making sure that Hernando has, like, the money needed to take care of him medically for the rest of his life. So there's that. But they also have to sign NDAs, which Siobhan's all about, like, no, I should try and find a loophole around this NDA because Boston and as a whole needs to know that this company is terrible and all the stuff that they're doing just to cover up the terrible work they are doing, so no one else gets hurt. But it's like, right, 9 million, she's like, it's a pretty good day. So things worked out in her day, not as much so for the Corsies at the end of it all, like I said, with the whole Den and Sinclair thing. We'll ultimately have to wait and see where all this takes us. The next episode is the season finale, another 8-episode season. So I'm so excited to see where all of this, because all the storylines are coming to a head. I mean, some are kind of like settled, but they're kind of ultimately entering their epilogues to some extent. I feel obviously like the whole Sinclair thing is like the overarching thing. I'm curious at the end of this, once again, where Jenny and Jackie will reside. I can see Jenny walking away, probably staying with Sue maybe Sue can, like, put her up somewhere for a bit. I don't know. Or maybe she'll stay with Jackie because she feels like she has no one else. I don't know. Will Jackie go back to the FBI after all this? Because that's what Jenny wanted him to. Either way, once again, the Sinclair, Letitia situation, how that plays out, we'll ultimately have to wait and see. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.